Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Kitchen talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Kitchen talk, let's talk. Conversations that cool. Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about? Let's talk, let's talk. What you wanna talk about?
There we go.
Hey, hey, hey.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. How is everyone doing?
Doing pretty good on my end.
All is well.
Good,
You already
good,
know
good.
me. Working on greater.
I am so happy to hear you say that. You do not know. You do not know how happy I am to hear you say that you are working on greater.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, testimonies. Yes.
Oh, that it is. That it is.
Listen, this is Kitchen Talk CTC.
Conversations that cook.
That's what they do. That's what they do. I am super excited about tonight's show. Wow, like this is France's probably favorite topic.
Wow.
Almost every show, he finds a way to bring this up. So this is his favorite topic. And every time he does, I think about how my pastor says, you don't necessarily have to preach holiness. If you just preach the word, it comes up. So whenever we talk, voting, and usually from France, comes up. So we are super, super excited to be here on Kitchen Talk Live tonight. How can I say? Like, excited. Is there a word beyond that? Because we just did our 100th show at the beginning of the year. And so now my level of excitement is like way beyond because we've been in this and it has been so wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna stop because it might sound a little braggadocious. But
elated would be a word right there.
Elated. Yes, that is a word. Thank you very much. France Lee Moyes has been rocking with me. JT Plummer has been rocking with me. Shout out to Mike Walker, who was in there from the beginning, getting us started on television and everything. So FAMU TV 20, Fox 49. We just been doing it. And now, you know, the pandemic was like, okay, what y'all gonna do now? And we was like, okay, we just gonna go, you know, take it to the net. We're gonna take it to the net. We're gonna take it.
You forgot about our favorite producer who moved away. Darlene
Ellis. Love her. That comes back every now and again, right?
Yeah.
So tonight we are talking about voting, which is very, very important and very befitting because we have also this whole month been celebrating Black history and talking about the positives and the things that we have yet to see happen, the challenges and everything that goes on, and us celebrating this month and even beyond that because we are Black 365, 66 in the leap year. And we do not apologize for it. Power to the people, right? So we have a returning guest with us, Dr. Kyle Harris from the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Go Rattlers. I call him Dr. Kyle because I love him so much. See him in the hallway. I keep trying to sneak in his class, but I know I gotta work, so I can't go in there. But I'm gonna sneak in them classes one time. You walk by the door and you like, oh my God, that sounds so good. I need to go in there. So he teaches history on the campus of FAMU, the highest of the 7 hills in Tallahassee, Florida. I'm so excited to have you here with us, Dr. Harris. And then we have, now you don't have a PhD just yet, or a divinity just Doctor of Divinity just yet. I'm sure it's in the making. Um,
It's like,
but
no.
we have Pastor Darrick McGhee Sr. This gentleman walks very worthy of the vocation to which he is called. And then he also, occupation wise, is a lobbyist. Is that
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
I got it right. I remember. So, Pastor McGhee, or Pastor D, as they call him, is my sister's pastor. But he's been in Tallahassee for a little while. Been in
Yeah.
Tallahassee for a little while. Great. Never heard anything but great things
That's
about
awesome.
Pastor McGhee. So excited to have you join us for the first time. And I will say the first time because I already know that you'll be back.
Awesome.
And you ain't even hardly open your mouth yet. And how do I know that?
They always come back,
You know.
Lisa.
I know they
Second.
do.
A second portion.
Right. So we are super excited to have this talk. So as you all are aware, nothing is off limits. We do not censor ourselves in any way. I try to a little bit, but I can't get them guys to, so I just don't even worry about it no more. I try to rein them in, Pastor McGhee. I try to rein them in a little bit, but
Let's
it
talk
just,
free. I love it.
yeah, it just don't work. It just don't work. So I think, interestingly enough, I am doing our Black History presentation for the church, and I decided to do a reading with visual aid of the accounts of the March on Washington.
Mm.
And what I found very interesting as I'm pulling this information together is that John Lewis, in his speech, which is one that is not as popular as the I Have a Dream, which wasn't even all of Martin Luther King's speech, but we just know I have a dream.
Correct.
I found it very interesting that in his speech, he talked about voting rights. And here we are, 2022, still fighting and talking about voting rights. So I'm going to start with Dr. Harris. Share your thoughts on how we hear when we was talking about that almost 60 years ago.
Woo. All right. So, of course, as we think about Black people and voting and so forth and so on, Black people have participated, I'd say, in various elections, even during the institution of slavery, wherein we elected our own officials and so forth and so on through these things called Negro Days and so forth and so on, where Black communities came together and had their own, I'd say, unofficial elections that were not necessarily recognized by this racist country. However, I'd say, of course, by 1870, the 15th Amendment was passed. All right. And of course, Black men received the right to vote, but we're going to see a lot of racist backlash to that, most particularly the famous line of John Wilkes Booth, who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. This means nigger superiority, boom, in the head. All right. And so forth and so on. And if you look at Ibram Kendi and Keisha Blaine's 400 Souls, A Community History of African America, what you will find is in the years following the Civil War in the South, there were technically more Black eligible voters than whites.
Mm.
So the importance of the KKK driving people from the polls was very, very, I'd say, important and pivotal to white people remaining in office, so that white narrative continuing there. And what we're going to find with the 15th Amendment, with Black people having the right to vote and so forth and so on, there are not going to be any protections in place to protect Black politicians. All right, in a lot of cases, from lynchings and so forth and so on, there are not any pieces in place that provide any type of uniform requirements between voting polls there in 1870. And what we're going to find by Voting Rights Act of 1965, you're going to have uniform requirements in place and so forth and so on. They're doubling down on discriminatory practices, all of those poll taxes, all of those marble tests and things that they do. And sometimes they do that in church where you guess the marble for $2. I'm like, oh my God. Guess the number of marbles. So all of those things are going to be outlawed, most particularly, I'd say, by 1965. All right, so Black people can freely go to the polls and so forth. And of course, in 1920, women, have the right to vote. Now, that was white women, all right, and it was clear. Ida B. Wells can tell you that they didn't want Black women to vote, all right. But all of those things came together for us. However, in 2013, Eric Holder challenged Shelby County, Alabama, most particularly because they were arguing that they could purge the rolls and make up, most particularly make up their own rules in regards to purging rolls there in Shelby County. And prior to that point, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 said if you want to change the rules, you have to receive federal oversight. Federal government has to approve it because Alabama, Georgia, America, you have a history of discriminating against Black people. All right. You are not quote unquote redeemed. All right. Those people are still alive. Those racist people have children. Racist people raise other racist children. All right. So those things are in place. So you need to receive federal oversight. And what is going to happen there? And it would just seem odd that the Attorney General of the United States can challenge a county and he loses. All right. So at that point, and they're going to argue in Alabama that there is no need to have federal oversight anymore, essentially arguing there that racism doesn't exist. That was a relic of the past. So now we can purge rolls when we get ready. And what we're going to find is in a lot of cases, most particularly by that of the Trump administration and so forth and so on, tens of thousands of people are going to be purged from rolls. Different identification requirements are going to be put in place. That is gonna make it very difficult for poor people, which are overwhelmingly Black and brown, to be able to have the right to vote. All of these pieces that we even see down to this very day, with Georgia passing these pieces wherein you can't give people water at the polls and so forth and so on. I don't know where the Holy Spirit is leading me, but I'm gonna have some cookies and some punch in my trunk on election day in Georgia, Miss Lisa, but I'm trying to see whether Mama knows is going to get me out of jail. All right. So all of these.
I got you. I got some bail money. I got you.
So all of those pieces are in place in essence to make it harder, I'd say. With prior to this point in Georgia and in Florida and so many other places, you had drop boxes for individuals. Black people, in a lot of cases, my cousins work 12 hours. All right, you work 7 to 7. Sometimes you can't make it to the polls and so forth and so on. Those drop boxes were in place so that you could vote after the fact or before and so forth and so on. So all of those pieces now, you're having these drop boxes in a lot of places being placed inside of buildings and so forth. So when you get off at 7:30, you can't do it, or you're gonna have to take personal time off just to vote. So all of those pieces are being put in place now, I'd say, to make it harder for Black people to vote. And what we had was that Freedom to Vote Act and that John Lewis Voting Rights Act bill. Both of those bills stalled. They stalled, all right? And it became crystal clear that they were not going to pass. And I'd say at this juncture, we just have to hold these politicians accountable, vote these people out, and keep it moving. And I know that, the president and the vice president and so forth, they did everything that they could. But in regards to those pieces, I think in a lot of cases, it was too little too late, all right, to start on that, all right? And it's just like, oh, Martin Luther King Day is coming up. So let's see, can we fight this so that people can have the right to vote? And it's like, sir, ma'am, Too late. It's just too late. All right. You've been in office almost a year. All right. That should have been a major item in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's still time. All right. But as it relates to centering these things about Martin Luther King Day and so forth and so on, it was just too little too late. So you have to wait for the next, I'd say, election cycle. And what Maya Angelou says, Miss Lisa, when people show you who they are, you believe them. So
Believe
these
them.
Republicans
The
have
first time.
okay, the first time. All right,
Right.
so they've shown us who they are. So get them out of office. All right, and so forth and so on. So I say that's how we've come back to this place, most particularly because of the Supreme Court decision of Shelby County, Alabama versus Eric Holder and the decision that came down there.
Wow.
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 Dr. Harris, you just gave us a lecture.
This is why I want to go in the classroom. I'm trying to tell y'all, I hear this when I'm walking by.
Doc, I'm going to hold off. I want to hear what Brother Darrick has to say.
Well, listen, I mean, I think Dr. Harris hit on all of it. I mean, his ending is my beginning, is in talking about voting out. So let's use Florida, for example, right? So in Florida, you have a bicameral legislature. So that's 40 senators, 120 representatives. And let's use the House, for example, the representatives. So of 120, 78 of them are Republicans, which means that they're too shy of a supermajority. What that means is you can pass anything you want to pass, whether Democrats vote with you or not. And honestly, right now with 78, you don't really need the Democrats. Even if they debate against the bill, is going to get through. And on the Senate side, it's like 26-14, 27-13. And so I've been lobbying for 21 years. The entirety of my lobbying profession, both public and private sector, Republicans have run the governor's office, the House, and the Senate, majority of the cabinet. And since our governor has come into office, the Supreme Court has now become conservative. And so you see certain things happening that any one of us would notice. Some of these things are not going, or you can either argue they're illegal activities or definitely questionable. And they usually lose in the lower court, but the lower court usually going to get appealed because the ultimate goal is to get it to the Supreme Court, because the belief is that the Supreme Court is going to always align itself with the governor. So you look at voting in that regard, we literally find ourselves years later begging for equality, begging for the equal right to be able to do what other men and women who don't look like us are able to do with no consideration whatsoever. But I've said this to people many times, and I will always say this, that what politicians recognize and realize is if they can continue to disenfranchise the Black man and woman from being able to vote, then they can ultimately control the narrative of who operates in office. If you think about certain states, Florida is another good example. When you get out of incarceration, our state makes it extremely hard for you to get your rights back. Now, I know people who have been going decades, going before clemency, and finding themselves walking out where literally you're finding the itty bitty minor thing they've done to keep them from doing that. Because the fear is if you restore the rights of the Black man, right? I mean, use a Black man more than anything else. You restore the rights of the Black man, that ultimately that voting bloc can turn the narrative and turn the direction of those who operate in office. And so you'll see things. For example, a few years ago, we had Amendment 4 where it polled over 60%, it passed over 60%. And when it came back to legislature to be ratified, the argument was, well, the electorate really didn't intend for that to be the result. They actually meant this and not this. And so you start having that. And a challenge with that interpretation is that when one party has that big of a lead in both chambers, you can ultimately say you're speaking on behalf of the people. And now you're changing that narrative. So Dr. Harris was saying, giving us the history lesson, which is necessary. What I always try to say to young brothers and sisters is it is a blatant insult to our foreparents when we don't understand the blood, sweat, and tears that was shed for this right, and we ultimately say my vote does not matter. We need to understand how important that is. Dr. Harris brought up the current activity of the Voter Rights Act in DC, and how national television showed President Biden, Vice President Harris in Atlanta doing what they were doing, but any one of us knew that they were too late. You know, you can look and say we control both parts in DC, but you don't, right? And so what's ultimately happening is everybody celebrated, depending on what your party affiliation was, they celebrated when Biden won. And I said to people, and I believe this, I work in politics, the city for city local government, the power in local government is not the mayor. It's going to have to be your city or county commission. But in Tallahassee, the power really is the city manager.
Yeah.
Right? You look at statewide, you can look at the governor, and governors kind of powerful, but the legislature ultimately are the ones who are passing laws. Same thing in DC, but we don't understand that. And so we have to understand as a people that when we go to the polls, the names below the top of the ticket are critically important. My saying has always been this, that federal government and national politics irritate me, but local politics affect me. Right, I have to know who's that judge that's running, right? Who's that city and county commissioner that's running? Those are the individuals, and their activities go into a place. They have a major impact on my life. I'm not saying to ignore DC, but a lot of times when we look at, if you look at the ballot, sometimes they'll put down a judge's name and say, "Do you want to retain them? Yes or no." Most folks either ignore it, they'll say yes. We've done no research on that judge whatsoever. Some of these judges who are being retained, if you look at their docket, you look at their history, their guilty record is heavily inflated toward one race, usually our race, but we ignore that. And so we're talking about from a voting standpoint, the mouth and the power is in the vote, right? The mouth and the power. This is why Dr. Harris mentioned why they try so hard. I want to keep us generally, and then keep Black women from voting. Right. I'm gonna give you another statistic that I think is important. So Governor DeSantis won the gubernatorial election in Florida in 2018. If you actually research that, in almost every poll leading up to that election night, Andrew Gillum was in the lead. If you look at the poll, you look at that the exit poll after the election, you will notice that he didn't win by a lot, being DeSantis, but there was one particular percentage that was a major. It's about 18%. If you break that down, that percentage was that 18% of traditional Black Democratic women broke from the party and voted for Ron DeSantis. If you keep dissecting that, you will learn they did that off of one issue. That one issue was school choice. Andrew Gillum said that I am for bricks and mortar public schools. I'm not for the scholarships. Ron DeSantis said I'm for school choice. I'm for the scholarships. All of a sudden, the money started going in that part. If you look at those who vote, I mean, the Wall Street Journal did a whole story about this, of showing that literally that one issue, several Black women broke apart from that. Here's why. Because most Black churches that actually have a school attached to it, most of those kids are on the scholarship. They're on some level of a scholarship that's given through the school choice spectrum. And so they started looking at and thinking is if Andrew Gillum becomes governor, I'm going to lose this scholarship. My child's education is going to be impacted. That became the narrative by which they saw the election, right? And an election literally turned off that one topic. Now, why is that important? That's important because when you look at voting overall, what's happening now is no longer us against everyone else. Now what they're doing is they're dangling issues and getting our attention off of an issue and drawing us away. And so now the person who has a history of disenfranchising us on one issue can now be glorified because that one issue that make it seem as if they're actually going to make your life better. So you go back to the national, right? You look at what's going on in DC. You tell me why the national Republicans are doing what they're doing to silence the power of the vote. It's because their fear is if they change the Voting Rights Act and actually modernize it, then all of a sudden they lose the control. You've actually had the majority leader in the Senate actually make comments that literally lets you know that his lens is that he's racist. And yet what they'll all do, they'll water it down. And so we have the power to change things, but we have to also understand this. We can't just respond when Brother Mike Brown gets murdered, right? We can't wait till those things happen before we decide to go. You think about Ferguson, right? You look at Ferguson, the time that happened, Ferguson was like almost 90-something% black community, right? It only had two black men on the police force. That many blacks in a community, you got a white police chief, a white mayor, so on and so forth. People got riled up. The next election, everything changed. But it shouldn't have taken that. When we recognize and realize what it takes, but what happens is the goal is always to keep Dr. Harris and Pastor McGhee at a war with each other. So ultimately, we're going to parse away the vote from each other. And so now instead of us linking together and making it better for our people, we find ourselves at a war with each other. And so now our people got to pick which side they're going to be on. And whoever side they pick to be on, now they're the enemy, versus us recognizing and realizing if we link together, we have way more power if we link together. When we think about Selma, we think about them crossing the bridge. The visual of that is that they were linked together, understanding on the other side of that bridge was the enemy. And yet we know on the other side with the enemy that they're going to torture us. They're going to try to beat us and bruise us. And yet and still we're going to march across this bridge because there's something greater on the other side. And we have to get back to that point of realizing not only just educating ourselves on voting, but actually discontinuing the excuses. Dr. Harris mentioned about getting rid of the drop box and no longer allowing water. We saw what happened in Georgia when black people started voting. Yeah. All of a sudden, they started trying to say that it was illegal voting taking place. Every Republican-dominated state, right? Let's see a Republican governor who's thinking about running for president. All of these states started advancing this Donald Trump narrative, right, about the electorate because the election was stolen. It wasn't stolen. We voted.
We voted.
And that's what it is. So now when we vote, we actually exercise our right to vote. Now, the thing is that the election was stolen. It wasn't stolen. We finally said, you know what? Enough is enough. Enough is enough. But we have to understand that this upcoming election in 2022, gubernatorially, presidential in 2024, all of these activities are purposely taking place to really discourage us from even showing up to the polls. And if we do show up to the poll, make it so confusing, we don't know what we're doing when we get in there.
Right, right. And I have said definitely before, friends, I think we got two good people in the kitchen.
Listen. I'm just sitting back here like, oh yeah, keep going, keep going, because you already know this is. You said it earlier, and it goes back to what I constantly say on this show. We keep getting played because we don't know how to play the game. Yes. So there's a quote that I use from my workshops with Chess for Life. We just did it with Lisa's group. If you don't know how to play, you're going to get played. Yeah. And essentially every election, going back to Dr. Harris, giving us that history, they didn't want black women to be in that. Once they got what they needed, we don't need you no more. You can stay in the back of the line. Yeah. Once they get what they need, okay, we don't need you anymore. Yeah. So we keep getting played because we don't know how to play the game. We have to be so much more savvy in our approach. Even now, brother Darrick, you said it again. Here it is. They want to separate the vote, separate the people who should be together, and say, hey, you come for this issue, you go for that issue. It goes back to our history. Yeah. Yeah. You know, again, how are we going to divide you? And once we divide you, we got you. Once we put this game in place and you don't understand how it is, you can count all the bubbles you want. You're never going to get it right.
Yeah. Correct. I mean, so, like right now in Florida, so every 10 years because of the census, they have to do redistricting, right? So you have to basically redraw the maps. So literally right now in Florida, they're doing the maps, right? And so what you're noticing is there are some seats being drawn within each other, right? Never in the history. It's been definitely over 30 plus years, if probably longer than that. But I can't in my 21 years, there has not been a governor who has ever involved himself in the maps.
And making his own map.
Governor Santos comes in, and now he wants to play around a congressional map, but it's one seat in particular, which is the current Al Lawson seat. Right. But here's what it is. If you remove Madison County out of that seat, which is a black community, right, that seat now starts looking more red. And so now all of a sudden everything changes. And the governor then tells the legislature, if I don't get my map, I'm going to veto the map you send me. Because again, as you mentioned, the narrative in politics is you're either at the table or you're on the table, right? So either you're doing the slaughtering or you're being slaughtered. And we have to understand, when a governor is this driven to change a map, and even the Supreme Court says, nope, you don't have the right, he submits a second map, right? But here's why you do that. Because when you're thinking about 2024, right, you're literally doing two things that I want everybody to understand. The first thing you're doing is that you're literally trying to disenfranchise majority minority community. That's the first thing. Second thing you're trying to do is you're literally trying to change the map so that the presidential election ultimately is determined by the state of Florida.
Correct.
And mainly by the Republicans in Florida. So now everybody is idly worshiping our state. And when this governor is being considered to be running for president, he's trying to do today what he believes necessary to help him out in 2.5 years from now. The challenge is...
I need to stop you for just a second.
Yes.
I got to.
Okay.
Because that's what we need to do.
Mm-hmm.
See, we're always behind the 8 ball. Already now we need to start going back to Barack Obama's presidency. And you said this is another key word when it comes to voting. Yeah. The key word is consistency.
Yes. We
can't just wait and vote for the presidential election. We can't just think about these big ones. We also got to think about the midterms. Yep. We got to think about our city officials. All of that is continuous.
Yes.
And when we don't do that, we put people in place who don't usually see things our way.
Correct.
And that's because we wait till it's too late.
Yeah.
So even now we should be looking at not just the next 2 years, the next 4 years, but the next 8, 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
I like the current administration.
Yeah.
Quote unquote. Yeah. But there's a lot that they could be doing now, right? Mm-hmm. They've done some good things, but there's so much more if we let's put it this way. When Barack won his first election, I already said we need to start thinking about midterm, and we need to start thinking about who's going to take his spot when he lost, when he was out of office, because he never lost. When he was out of office, that's the situation we fell into. We fell into a dump situation where we didn't have the best person to represent us and what we thought should happen moving forward. Mm-hmm. It was whoever, it's up for grabs. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be that way. At this point, we really have to start thinking.
Are you saying that Hillary wasn't the best candidate?
No, she wasn't.
No, she wasn't.
Even Biden's not the best candidate. And I can say that now. I'm happy he won.
See, Lisa, the challenge also, though, is, and here's what the difference between Republicans and Democrats, when you look at somebody, especially let's use statewide, for example. Statewide, Republicans in Florida do a really good job of keeping a starting 5 in the bench. Democrats don't. And so right now, for example, you have one statewide Democrat, which is Nikki Fried. Somebody's convinced Nikki Fried to run for governor. No poll has ever given Nikki Fried a chance to win governor, but she jumped into that race, which means you ultimately are forfeiting your current statewide seat to run for a seat you can't win. Now you got Charlie Crist running again for governor. Then you got Annette Taddeo running for governor. You got 3 individuals running for governor, and none of the polls show them even in the striking distance of beating Ron DeSantis. So ultimately, Ron DeSantis is raising presidential money in the gubernatorial election.
Again,
he has over 100. Say again.
Again, splitting the vote.
Exactly. He's right. He has over $100-something million right now in his political committee. You don't need that much money to win a gubernatorial election. You need that much money to run for president, right? But the thing is no Republican's going to run against him, because you know what they're doing? They're all preparing themselves to run for an open ticket in 2026.
There it is.
But after every statewide election in Florida, if you ever look at the money, which I usually monitor, the Florida Democratic Party usually ends an election broke.
Yeah.
Florida Republican Party usually ends the election still in the millions. So they're literally prepared to get involved in local races because they have money to do those type of things. They're literally gearing up individuals very early on to do those situations. And so we're always, we being the voters, We're always behind. Now, you also think about this. Florida, if you look at the midterm elections in Florida, the incumbent very rarely loses in the midterm elections in Florida, because most times the voters who show up in a presidential election, they're not coming 2 years later for gubernatorial. And so you can almost walk into that victory in a midterm election, because we're not going to go vote. We're just not going to do it. Right. If you I'm gonna give you this last hat, and Dr. Harris, I want you to jump back in. I don't want to dominate this, but I want to give you one more thing I think is very, very important. When Rick Scott ran for governor in 2010 and 2014, he ran against Alex Sink in 10. Yeah. And he ran against Charlie Crist in 14. If you look at those polls, Rick Scott never led in any of those polls. Matter of fact, he never got above 35% in any of those polls. What he did was, he outworked them. But also what he did was he found one or two issues that resonated. He rolled those issues. But the weekend before the Tuesday election day, right, Democrats in Florida always put their money in souls to the polls. Yeah. Those 2 Sundays, they put a lot of money in souls to the poll. So what Rick Scott did was, a weekend before that Tuesday, he dropped $12 million of his own money that weekend for TV ads. The same weekend he did that, Charlie Crist's campaign was going broke, so they couldn't compete. And it ended up happening on election day. The result was the incumbent governor won. Every poll showed him losing. He won. Why am I giving that to you? Because it is easy to see how this all plays itself out. How it plays itself out is for us as a Black people, if there's not an issue or a person that looks like me that's really hitting my issues, I'm not interested. Not interested. 2008 President Obama election, we showed up in major numbers. Droves. Look like us. Right. Look like us. But if you watch his time in office, most of the time in his office, he was dealing with, at a certain point, with a Republican-led Congress. Correct. It was hard to get anything done when Congress is not your same party. And again, happened during midterm. We did not go back and vote. Exactly. To give him the power he needed to do the work that he needed to do. And so right now, what's happening with the Voting Rights Act in DC is that McConnell and all those guys are playing these games because they're wanting to flip Congress this November. And so they can keep disfranchising the people, not giving them the rights that they should have, because they want to flip it this December. Remember now, U.S. Senate is 50-50. Separates them is Kamala Harris. But it's 50-50. And you got one Democrat who's always leaning toward the right. And so the point of that is voting matters. And when we look at these things, we have to understand that literally sometimes moving one person out the way changes the entire narrative. The whole game. The whole game. Dr. Harris, you got to come off mute, brother.
Yeah, so I was just letting you all talk.
I'm right.
Just feeding into what you all were saying there, and it's just important that, as you were saying, sometimes you have various political candidates and so forth and so on. They come in and divide us on issues and so forth and so on. That's why it's just so important. I was reading this book by Barbara Smith, The Truth That Never Hurts, writings on race, gender, and freedom, building coalitions, all right, around collective issues and so forth and so on, just remembering those pieces. And as we look here at Barack Obama and so forth and so on, you can essentially figuratively arrest a president when you don't come back out for those off-cycle elections and so forth and so on. And you're looking at the president as if he's incompetent. But in a lot of cases, we have a checks and balances system. All right. The president is just signing things off. All right. Congress has to legislate. All right. And when you don't have those people in place, things happen, most particularly as it relates to the voting rights, those 2 voting rights bills. All right. They put that filibuster in place. All right. What is this? 60, 70 years ago, that filibuster was put in place to stop African-American civil rights legislation. All right. Joe Biden has said the filibuster was racist. Barack Obama said the filibuster was racist. So why keep it in place if it's racist? So that's the part that gets me. And even when we were around Martin Luther King Day, it was like, let us temporarily remove the filibuster and pass this and then put it back. WTH, why would you put it back?
Listen. He used it when he was in Congress. Come on now.
and that's why it's just so important. And all of us have work to do, all right,
Yeah.
in our
Yeah.
respective fields in
Right.
regards to enlightening people.
Yeah.
And I won't be critical and say that we have to do this and so forth. So when I do that, it's just like, so Kyle, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Correct.
All right. So with those pieces, it's like it just went over the top of the average American citizen's head. It's just like, so you're gonna put it back after you pass the bill that just kills it. And what that filibuster does is we very well know, instead of it being 50-50, all right, and Kamala walks over and breaks the tie per se, now it's 60-40. And Miss Lisa, we knew that from the beginning. And like we said, too little, too late. We knew we were not going to get 10 Republicans to pass these voting rights bills and so forth and so on. It was just impossible. And when you have those pieces in place and you continue to allow those pieces to, when you continue to allow congressmen to put those or to maintain those racist structures, it will continue. All
Now,
right.
let me add this, Brother Harris, because just think about this. Here we are, 2022, and we still need a bill to ask permission to vote.
Mm.
We still need a bill. We still need somebody to tell us, the same people that's paying paying your salary. We still need your position. We need your confidence to say, okay, yeah, you can pass this, and now you get the right to do something you should already have the right to do, period. The white man had the right to do it without a bill. But yet, black people still need a bill, and women. See, I think that's the piece where we miss, where you said a word early, and I said, oh, you got to come back to it. Building communities. Georgia is doing that. It's not about white or black anymore.
Yep.
It's about how do we push our community and put our community in a better position where we have hospitals, where we have resources, that they're not taking away something that should be our own right. That should be your right. Now, here we are, 2022, talking about, I hope they pass the bill so that we could do something that we should be able to do, period.
Right.
Yeah, and
that's
it's like
really my biggest question, and it always is my biggest question. First of all, I have been very jaded. I vote, don't get me wrong, but I'm always very jaded because I always feel like no matter who we vote for, whether they say they're on our side or not, sometimes they're not doing things for the people. They're doing things for their own personal gain, vainglory, or whatever. And that's, to me, across the board, black, white, purple, green, whatever color it is. So I understand when people get a little frustrated with the process and with the system. But what I don't understand is, why do we have to keep coming back to it? What is it that just says this is it, period? Why every so many years you got to say, okay, you can keep doing this? What do you mean? When do we get to the all men are created equal, period, and point blank, and we done?
Let's take the bill away.
I'd say, Miss Lisa, it's just, I don't know if it's because the election cycles are every 4 years or every 2 years, we tend to forget. And in a lot of cases with politicians, you get a stereotype about them, telling LIESs. All right, in a lot of cases. But my thing is this. All right, if you tell me you're going to do one thing and you didn't do it, I'm sorry, you have to go. I love you, but you didn't do what you said you were going to do for us. All right, and so forth and so on. Once we start holding these politicians, these leaders accountable for what they say they're going to do, all right, these types of cycles ultimately will continue. And it's just like you have to put the right person in the position to do the work. You're not there for a photo op. All right, you're not there for the limelight. All of those things are secondary, as I put on my Facebook status today, to the work, all right, that you're doing. So just, I'd say just going back to holding them accountable. And then one other thing I want to say about the filibuster, and I'm going to leave it alone. You have all of this, what is this guy's name down here? DeSantis, with this anti-woke legislation and so forth and so on, wherein as it relates to this new thing with this new backlash against critical race theory and all of this, and we don't want our white kids feeling uncomfortable in schools and so forth and so on, as it relates, exactly, as it relates to history. However, all right, if you know the racist underpinnings of the filibuster, more Black people or just more people in general would be outraged. Again, so that's why it's so very important that we tell the whole story of this country and how things came to be and the reasons why they came to be. And I'm not saying teach racism to kids in first grade, but by the time you get to physics in 10th grade, you should know the racial underpinnings behind these structures and so forth and so on. And therefore, you will be more aware when you go to the polls of what you can do, what people can do to you, and what they cannot do to you. And what history has shown us in regards to what racism has done to Black people. And once we realize, are able to identify racism, all right, we won't allow it to continue to happen. Another thing I want to say, I'm gonna leave it alone. All right, you hear people talking about, my vote don't count, and all that kind of carrying on and so forth and so on. And you hear it, but my question is, my thought process is examining why that contingency of people are saying that their vote doesn't matter. Something is going on in their communities, all right, wherein the potholes in the road, they have remained that way for 10 years. You get what I'm saying? The food deserts have remained for 10 to 15 years. You've had politicians come in time and time again to say, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you. You can be so poor, all right, until you won't vote, all right, especially when the raises never come. You get what I'm saying? So in a lot of cases, we have to begin to examine why these people are saying what they're saying. It's not that they're just being ignorant and stupid and da-da-da-da-da and so forth and so on. It's because we live in a system wherein these individuals have been repeatedly abused and influenced. And once we get to the point where we won't allow that anymore, individuals will wake up and be more galvanized to go to the polls. Going back to the whole little piece with the felonies and so forth. So we voted on that in 2018. All right. And it seemed as if, Miss Lisa, it was supposed to pass. All right, and Republicans gagged. And then it's like, no, convicted felons don't get the right to vote now. You have to pay off your fines. And it's like, no, bro. All right. Like, we voted on this and it passed, but y'all slept on it because you didn't think it was going to pass. Right. So those types of pieces, we just have to continue. We have to realize that as in 1870 with the KKK and what they did to terrorize Black people and exploit Black people and so forth and so on, you have similar agendas in place today to divide and to conquer. Again, building community, building coalitions, enlightening people, educating people, engaging people, being sincere, being committed, being vested in your community. And once people realize that, all right, I think they'll jump on board. So
that's why I wanted to get you right there, Doc. You said it. You said it like 3 times, and I said I got to put it in because we keep waiting for the outside person,
right?
Who keep coming in and say, "Oh, I'm going to do it. I promise. I promise." When we really should be looking inward, because that inward person knows the community, and I'm not just talking about Black folks. They know the people, and that's why Georgia. Man, Stacey Abrams understands the people in that community. They know her. It's not all we just met her on TV or at the church service that Sunday on Voteless People's Souls to the Polls. That's when we met her. No, we've been met her. We saw her at the barbershop. We saw her at the supermarket. She goes to the schools. I know Mr. Harris. Dr. Harris works at the local university. I see him here and there. I know Mr. McGhee. Mr. McGhee is on lobbying for us, pushing for us. And I know when he gets in office, he's going to do what he's already done.
Okay, because past experience on the resume. All right, so forth and so on. It's just like Miss Lisa, I'm applying for a job in chemistry, but I'm going to leave that alone and have no background, all right, in chemistry. And so many times you have politicians that will come into your space and tell you what they're going to do. And they're
45.
to do with your constituency.
Nothing.
All right, so it's just like me trying to teach Kim 1045, Miss Lisa. It doesn't work. I can read from the textbook all day, but when it comes to applying knowledge, I can't do it. Completely incompetent. All right, so, and that's what I'm trying to get so many in my students and so forth and so on to realize when analyzing candidates. Do these people have a long-term track record of working in your community, or did they just suddenly pop up?
So appealing because he was already building coalitions. He was already grassroots. So it's easy for me to say, well, I don't know him. Let me do some. Oh, he was already doing that. He was already working in the food bank. He was already working with poor people. Oh, that's my guy.
But you know, another thing that I think would be good. I'm sorry, Pastor.
No, please go ahead, Lisa.
Another thing that I think, and I've said this before too, maybe some term limits, because if you're just a career politician and the whole thing is just getting voted in, getting voted in, getting voted in, getting voted in, you're not doing no work.
Nothing.
Yeah. So
you're not doing no work. So when you do a presidency and you know you got 4 years and you may get another 4 years, in them 8 years, you really gonna try to do something. You're gonna try to do some work. But I all of our career politicians,
God bless your
soul. But if you 60, 70, 80 years old and you still the representative, you still the senator, you still this, you're not fresh. I'm sorry. Unless you got some people around you that's keeping you up to date, that's helping you move forward, that's helping you move with the times. Hello.
And really, that's how it works, Lisa. To be honest with you, it's the staff members who keep them up to date and keep them pushing.
There you go.
But the question is, at the end of the day, when do we start moving the needle? When do we start saying, nah, you know what? We just had a meeting for the past 3 years, and we watched Mr. McGhee do some work. And we like what he's doing. Let me go back. Since we're talking about history, it's a Black History Month. Let's go back to Dr. King and why they killed him in the first place, why they killed Malcolm X. Again, it's galvanization. When they started to come together.
Yep.
Now, the Black church at the time did something amazing. They shared resources. They talked with each other. Dr. King was just a microphone. The real battery was the people pushing the agenda. So where's that battery? And how do we charge that battery? The microphone is going to change, but the battery should still be the same. We should still be able to power this thing and turn it up and say, okay, we got our man, we got our woman, we got our ready. As Brother McGhee said, we got our top 5. We got our top 5 off the bench, ready to roll. And then again, it's not just a Black issue. I think we mess up on that every time. It's people, period. The white community suffers so much, but they don't even know it. Just for prestige. I'm such and such. No, you're not. Trump made all the money. You didn't. Trump had a job. You didn't. He got these people in the coal mines thinking they're gonna get their jobs back. Where's that, in Virginia? Am I correct? Them things still close. But you fell for the trap over and over. And we fall for it. And America suffers every single time.
It was 2 things were said earlier that I think are so very important. The first one was in reference to the Black church. And if we look at it from a historical perspective, the Black church was always a major player when it came down to voting, right? I know growing up for me, if you're running for office, there was no way you was going to win a seat in any Black community if you didn't come to the Black church and meet the people and have a conversation, et cetera, et cetera. But now what happens is we don't put a demand anymore on our votes, right? We just kind of give them up.
Correct.
So a politician can come in there, give you a great good morning. They're gone before even the pastor get up to preach somewhere else. There's just nothing, right? Or they befriend the pastor. And, in the people, I always say to people that membership follows the example of leadership, right? So the people believe because pastor let this person come in here, they must be a good guy or good woman.
Correct.
All of a sudden, they kind of just go along with it, and then realize later I'm further disenfranchised. You mentioned earlier about food deserts. So we're seeing in our community not only food deserts, we're also seeing childcare deserts, right?
Yeah.
These things are reality. What are you seeing popping up more and more? You're seeing Dollar Generals popping up more and more.
Everywhere.
You know why? Dollar Generals are going into the communities that where food deserts are. But literally, if you're not going to find fresh fruits and vegetables at a Dollar General, you may find a couple of kiosks.
Yeah.
That's not what they're there for, right? They're there to monopolize on spaces where grocery store isn't. FAMU is, if you look at it, FAMU actually is housed within a food desert.
Right.
A university is in a food desert.
Yep.
Until they put that Publix.
Did they put that Publix?
Across
The Greenwise.
The
Exactly.
Greenwise, right.
Yeah.
And the Greenwise really ain't for y'all.
There you go. Thank you. That's all a part of, I call it the Jameis money, right? When they won a championship with Jameis, all of a sudden you started seeing College Town get built up.
Yeah,
Everything started coming, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But you're right. That Greenwise
that is a border. They built a border.
It's across that railroad track.
Y'all. That's a border.
And there's no sign for it on one-ish. Okay.
There you go. You were where I was going out to Harris.
That's true.
If you look at things take place, it is a clear indication of how this is supposed to play itself out. The Black church, again, used to have a major role. It was written by Dr. King. So when I grew up in Los Angeles. My dream was to go to USC. I got into USC, just couldn't afford to go. My cousin lived in Atlanta when I was in college. I went to visit her one year for the summer, and just fell in love with Atlanta. Always been admired Dr. King. Got a chance to tour so many things in Atlanta. But the one thing that I learned in my research that many times we're going to talk about is that the message of civil rights was much bigger than a speech, right? If you ever listen to it, they were talking about economic empowerment and social empowerment and voting empowerment. But also what was said earlier, I think is so key is before Dr. King ever gave a major speech anywhere, they would convene usually the night before, and it would be clergy and foot soldiers meeting in some gathering, having a conversation. Dr. King may be in and out of that town in a matter of days to, let's say, a few days, right? The work got to still be done. The work was being done by the people who lived in that community. And as you mentioned, Dr. King may have been the mouthpiece, but there were people behind the scenes doing the work. John Lewis was already doing work when he got recognized by Dr. King. He was already doing work as a student when he got put on their radar. So he didn't start doing it after he got recognized. He's already doing it and it got recognized. He was already going into hostile territory and environments. You look at things right now. We have seen the documentation at 32304 in our community is one of, if not the poorest zip code, right? We know this, we see this, we know this. And yet our fight today as a people, our fight today now is who got the biggest church, who got the most members, who got the biggest parking lot, how many people you see in East Sunday, Doc. We've now become that argument versus recognizing the power that we have when we come together. The greatest way to keep us from winning is to separate us. Is to get us to begin to war with each other, begin to look at each other and tear each other down. Is all of a sudden you start, I call it the dangling effect, right? You find that one thing that get Dr. Harris's attention, you start dangling out in front of him. Now, if you lure him in because of his influence,
right,
those he influenced will follow him because he's been drawn away.
Right.
And that's what begins to happen. I mean, now you're seeing even our HBCUs. Now you're starting to see white men and women now find themselves coming to our universities and benefiting from our education. When many people said, when I was at FAMU, 96 to 2000, we were Princeton Review College of the Year.
Yep.
Right. And then people start talking about, well, that's not really what it means. It means this and not this. Hold on now. She's trying to say that we're not educated as a people. And a lot of us, we chose HBCU, right? It wasn't like the only option we had. We chose it because we're proud of who we are. I have no regrets about my education, none whatsoever, but also understanding the labor that our people have gone through. When you think about miles that we had to walk at times to be able to vote. I had a privilege a few years ago in 2017 to go to Uganda. To God be the glory. That's all I can say, man. I mean, when you get on the motherland, you just feel like you're supposed to be there, right? I saw people walking miles
Yep.
in the scorching heat in their African regalia to come to church.
Yep.
They would stay 4 and 5 hours. I'm talking, you talk
whole
about praise
day.
and worship services.
Yeah.
They would stay all day. They didn't leave early. They didn't complain, right? They wore their best attire on Sunday, right? But you also saw them taking care of each other. The
Right.
pastor who hosted me, he had moved in his aunt who was disabled, living in a wheelchair. And he told me in Uganda, they don't have nursing homes, right? If you're able to do it, you're supposed to move in your elder loved ones and care for them with your own resources, right? It's the mindset, it's the culture, it's the belief that we all we have.
Yeah.
We're all we have. When we look at it from the election standpoint, from a voting standpoint, we have to stop assuming, we got to stop having a savior complex, which I need somebody to save me from this. I'm gonna vote this person and vote this person in. No, as you mentioned earlier, that if you look at their resume of service, it ain't there. You can't make it appear. It's not there.
It don't just show up on Sunday.
Yourself is that. So then what you start seeing is you start, like right now, there's a big fight happening right now with the Blueprint trying to give money to FSU for Doak Campbell Stadium. Yes. I mean, there's people out there today protesting outside of City Hall in droves. But here's the fact of the matter. I heard one lady say, we're doing all this, and I'm gonna fight till I can't fight no more. She said, but the problem is they already done came in here with their vote already paid for.
It's already done. It's a done deal. We're behind the 8 ball.
They already done promised that vote to somebody. They'll get something in return. Right. If you follow the campaign contributions, the answer is right there.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right? They're no longer fearful of what we can do to them because they don't expect us to ever use that power. Dr. Harris said something I think is so key. So my church is on the south side of Tallahassee. We adopted Oak Ridge Elementary School. We adopted Oak Ridge Gibbs Village, was a disabled community. Senior citizens. We do work in Briarwood. We just adopted Bond this year, right? And I talked to the families in those communities. 1 year, here's why we adopted Bond. Adopted Oak Ridge. I make it really quick. The previous principal called several churches and businesses in the community and said, "Can you help us? We want all the kids who made the honor roll. We want to take them on a field trip." Asked us to give a certain amount of money. We said absolutely. We gave our money. I had the audacity to ask her, "Well, where are you gonna take them?" I'm thinking she's gonna say Six Flags, maybe Wild Adventure. She said the Challenger Learning Center. And I said, "It's what?" And she said this to me though. She said, Mr. McGhee, you may not know this, Pastor McGhee. She said most of the kids at Oak Ridge have never been outside of a 3-block radius.
Listen, I worked at all of those schools. Every Title I school in Tallahassee, I worked for or with through my program or through just volunteering. And what she said was 100% true. They haven't even been. You're going just around the corner from the city. I took a group of kids skating to the skating center on Capitol Circle. And I was sitting next to the student. Never forget, I was working at NIMS Middle School at the time. Principal was Miss Dr. Pamela Heyman.
Yeah.
The student told me, "Mr. Morris, where are we? Are we still in Tallahassee?" I'm like, "Yeah, we just up the block." To their mind, they were in a completely foreign area.
Yeah.
But what pains me about your statement is that they could have took them anywhere else, but they had to raise the money.
Yeah, correct.
To take them to they could have walked the kids there. They could have the bus service could have took them there, but they had to raise the money to take them there out of all places.
And that became my awakening. But when Dr. Harris said what he said, I felt as a pastor, I felt an unction in my spirit where I felt like the Lord was asking me a question. The question was, if your church burned down today, would anybody in this community know y'all ever existed?
Nope.
Wow.
And my feeling was nope. And at that point, that became my wake up call that we got to do more in this community as a church, because we can't have good church on Sundays and not impact the lives of the people around us.
Yeah.
Right. So Dr. Harris talked about the potholes in the road, things of that nature. You know, we started doing the food pantries and started doing clothing drive, things of that nature, started really giving toward the schools, and not for media. We did it because when you're sitting around a young person who has no hope, you know, with their mom, their dad, their grandparent, they have no hope. He's right. Voting is the least of what they're thinking about. Right. They're trying to figure out, can I just make it to tomorrow on this limited?
That's
right?
right.
And so it's hard for them to think about what's happening in City Hall or the state capitol, anywhere else. They're just trying to make ends meet today.
Right.
And that's what it is. They may not understand yet what the city and county commission matters are. They're just trying to make sure that, like, one parent told me, Pastor McGhee, if I don't go to work tomorrow, I don't get paid. Right. I got to decide between, do I go to work or stay home with my sick child? What do I got to do here?
Yeah.
And so I agree with Dr. Harris. It's not always that our people aren't interested, they don't care. They're dealing with the struggle of just trying to survive.
Here it is. We have a holiday for everything. Everything. But we don't have a holiday for voting. Wouldn't it be nice to say, you know what? On February 14th, Valentine's Day, we're gonna make that voting's day. You don't gotta go to work. All you got one job.
To go vote.
One job. Your job is to vote and spend time with your family, spend time with your community, spend time with your constituents. Nah.
No.
I mean,
yeah.
Again, we're voting people in power who are not using their power to make a difference.
Right.
But even going down to the microcosm of our churches, right? What are we doing? And I believe it was you, Brother McGhee. What are we doing, Reverend McGhee? What are we doing even at, oh no, it's Dr. Harris. What are we doing now? What am I doing now?
Yeah, there you
to
go.
Push the needle.
Good point.
How am I talking to the students, to the next generation, so that they can say, you know what, I could be Dr. King. I could be better than Dr. King. Mm-hmm. I have students who say, Mr. Morris, I want to be like you. No, be better than me.
Be better.
Because you are better. You're a better version. So how can we start pushing them to that next level so that they can be better?
Right.
We had a group of people on our show. I can't remember. It was a while back. They talked about this church edifice that they were building. And I said, what a great idea. They brought all these other churches together to build this beautiful edifice. And I said, man, that's a great idea. You remember that?
You talking about OS.
Yes.
Yeah.
They came together. We're going to build this church. I said, okay, now that church is built, what you going to do next?
Yeah.
Are you going to help the other churches build their edifices? Are you going to help push voting right? Are you going to help push better education? Our school board members who sometimes are, how are we going to take them out of place and start talking about what's happening in our school systems? Well, I mean, if you could build a church, why not build a community?
Yeah.
If you could build a community, why not build a state? If you could build a state, why not build a nation?
It's true.
I'm not running for office, but I'm just telling you some of the things that need to happen. But we sit back and we wait for, here he is, Sunday morning. We put our faith in you to go. I'm going to give you this one last one because I got to say it. He had passed away. This is an old FAMU professor. He was over the School of Business. And he said this: I have some of the smartest people working for me Monday through Friday. And a lot of them come to church with me on Sunday. But some reason on Sunday, these smart, intelligent, well-spoken people on Sunday, the switch goes off. Boop. And they become some of the people that I'm like, well, what happened to all of that intelligence? What happened to all of that mind, the thought? When he told me that, I said, you telling nothing but the truth, Doc. Because for some reason on Sunday and on Souls to the Polls, our mind goes boop, and we forget what it is we need to do to push our community. Dr. Evans. Dr. Evans. Before he passed away. Charles Evans. He said, man, I got some of the smartest people, but on Sunday. And I'm like, if it happens in your church, how many other churches is happening?
Right.
And I went to I go to his church. Anyway, we leave that alone.
I know, Dr. Harris, that's right.
Right. But hey,
Bethel Church.
Keep that same energy on Sunday, okay?
Keep that same energy. Let's keep talking about moving HBCUs. Let's keep talking about moving our educational system, K through 12. Let's keep talking about helping our elderly people.
Absolutely.
Let's keep talking about providing for our communities in ways that they're not getting provided for. Let's keep talking about letting their voices still be heard.
Absolutely. So voting again, you got to do it. No matter how you feel about it, you got to do it. You got to do your research. You got to vote. You got to vote.
I think, again, it's not just about the vote, Lisa. We need to start strategically putting the right people in place to vote for.
Right. No, I get that.
We're going to go through that same cycle every time because they don't trust the people in place.
Right. But you have to, again, you do your research so that you do put the right people in.
Yep.
And you don't skip a vote.
Yeah.
Yes.
You don't skip a vote.
No.
You know, it's not just the presidential election. It is the midterms. You don't skip a vote. If your city is voting on whatever, if you have an opportunity to vote, you need to go vote.
Yeah.
It is beyond. I actually labeled this voting a right or a privilege, but it's beyond that. It is your duty.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is your duty.
I know we're about to wrap up. Let me just submit this to the listening audience. As a person who's been doing lobbying for a long time and working in politics, I want to implore us, when you're doing that research, make sure that you are researching these judicial candidates.
Yes.
Knowing who's running for office, learning who's currently in office as judges at every level, right? Because we can't allow that part of the ballot to be unimportant to us. We just circling names. Right. No, you got to make sure you're educating yourself on what these individuals are doing, they're not doing, what their record looks like, things of that nature. Because that's how you end up having people who serve for such a long period of time unopposed, because we show no interest in certain parts of the ballot, or the wording is done in such a way where it confuses you. And so now you're like, I don't know what that really means. I'm just going to ignore it altogether. That's all a part of the game. It's the hope is to frustrate you to the point where you say, you know what, I'm not going to do anything with it whatsoever.
Yeah. And I have to be honest, there have been times when I kind of felt that way. Like, I don't really get this. Yeah. And even in getting that ballot early and looking through it and researching it and calling people and let's talk about this. What does this really mean? But again, like you say, the language it can be so confusing. So yes, I may have somebody that I can call to help me sort through this, but what about the people that don't?
Correct. Exactly. So that, you're doing your research, and then you have other organizations that help to educate and enlighten others and so forth. I think it just goes in tandem.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely
and then again, that's where a lot of the churches and other organizations, Divine Nine. I mean, every even HBCUs. I mean, FAMU has a voting forum, I believe, every election where you could come in and talk about certain things and what does this mean and how this is going to affect me. We just need to show up to those things. Yeah. So those resources are there. We just need to show up and find out as much as we can so that we can make the best informed decision. But we need to start doing it collectively.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that's where the power is at.
Yeah. Listen, France always make us go overtime because he just
Oh God.
Oh my goodness, this has been such a wonderful show. And you know it's always good when that hour goes by and you look up and you're like, wait a minute, where did it go? Where did it go? Listen, you guys definitely have to come back. We talk about all the time, almost every chance we get, every so many months. So I actually think this is our voting panel right here. How about that, friends?
Okay. I love it.
Yes. We got a couple of other all-stars to put this team around this team. We need to start. And what we're doing right now is the work.
That's right.
Don't get it twisted. It's us talking about it, having those conversations, and then coming up with the strategic plan. If we, like you said, the reverends, the clergy, they sat around and talked about it. And they made a decision. We just need to continue on that legacy. There's no more time for marching.
And the honest conversation.
Correct.
So yes, we do need to talk about, yes, we have been frustrated, but we can't let that stop us.
Correct.
The honest conversations about it. Yes, we still see that this is going on, but we can't let that stop us. We got to keep moving until it changes.
I keep going.
You just have to.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to, because if you stop, you die.
Voteless
There you
jurors
go.
are hopeless, people. Just that simple.
Absolutely. So thank you, Pastor D,
Yes, ma'am.
Dr. Kyle. I appreciate you guys so much. Listen, when I email you, text you, or whatever, don't act like you don't know who I am.
Yes, ma'am.
Be like, I ain't going back on there. Be
No,
like,
It's
ma'am.
always a pleasure.
Right, I agree. Always a pleasure.
I absolutely enjoyed this conversation, and we will definitely continue because we do have to vote. It is our duty.
Mhm.
It is our duty. It is what makes change. Whether we see it, it might be a slow, but Dr. Matthews says a steady drop of water will wear a hole in the rock.
Amen.
So we got to keep being the steady drop of water.
Mhm.
There it is.
Got to keep being the steady drop. Francis, my guy, thank you for always hanging in there, rocking with me these 5-6 years. Oh my God, we've been doing this. It's been so great. This has been Kitchen Talk CTC.
Conversations that cook.
Oh, wait. I got to give us this one announcement. JC, can you find that? Shout out to Jamal Coleman in the background engineering for us. The book. Can you put the book up for us, please? We are book clubbing it. At the end of March, on March 31st, we will have the author here, Dr. Marvin Scott. If you would like to join us in that conversation and read this book, Internal Investigation, A Journey into Your Soul, it is on Amazon. You can purchase it there. So we'll be book clubbing it on March the 31st with the author, Dr. Marvin Scott. So hopefully you'll take a chance, go get it, read it, and join the conversation because we're gonna be talking. We love to talk. Like France. Wait, which way? There it is. France loves to talk. Loves to talk.
They got to hear our voice. If they don't hear our voice, we are out of the game. Period.
Absolutely. So thank you all so much. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. We will see you all back in the kitchen on Thursday, always at this same time, 9:00. And you know, it get hot in the kitchen. That's why I kind of simmer over this hour, right?
Right.
So thank you. Kitchen Talk CTC, Conversations That Cook. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
All right. See you next week. Stay in the